Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is the Brushless Micro Indoor Roundup. We can't really fit everything on the screen, so let's get reorganized. This is the Ready to Fly category. While this category isn't fully represented here, we have a few key ones that are missing, like the DYS Elf, and there's a couple of others that have prop guards on them. But I don't have them all, so we're going to go with what we have. In this category, I think one that we could probably throw out is this one. While it performs admirably, it's just too expensive. I don't think too many people are going to buy this. I think a lot of people bought this at the time it was released. And it didn't take long for the Mosquito to fall by the wayside because of that price point. $250, that's hard to swallow. As you can see here, if you didn't see my video, I think I did a follow-up video on this, where I did crack this, and I think I only cracked at the front, but I added some super glue here to each of the corners because that was a weak spot. I think part of my crack played a role in the fact that it was a little bit chilly out when I was flying this outside, and I was flying it with prop guard. If you have one of these and you suffer the tail end dropping, Furious has a video out, and it's been out for quite a while, and many of you have commented on this video how you can change the motor rotation to where it spins in from the corners here, spins in this way, and then you change your digital idle percent. And I did try that, it does work. But I did feel like it flew differently. So that's something to note. So let's put this one aside. The Baby Hawk has got great value, but I think one of the things that it doesn't do very well is fly without vibrations. And that's primarily because of the poor props. Now recently on the Banggood website, they have the new colored props, and hopefully those are better. You didn't see this one on the channel because it's been covered and covered and covered, and by the time I got around to covering it, Emax did tell me they were going to send me one, but it turns out they didn't. So I had to order one myself, and quite honestly, I was pretty disappointed. I didn't think the camera was very good. The video on it was pretty poor. Working on this is the pain in the backside, and the main reason I got it was I wanted to see what it was going to take to get the vibrations out, and I put some rubber grommets below everything, and then I went out and flew it, and it was a little bit better, and I was going to continue that. And the next thing I did, I think I did some different mounting for the flight controller, and then this right front motor just kind of twitches. So I swapped out the motor. The next motor didn't twitch, but it didn't spin either. So I swapped out the ESC, went back to the original motor, and it's still twitching. And then I went to I had the new ESC in there, and then I swapped out the motor, and that motor didn't do anything. At that point, I got frustrated, and I just set it in the box. It's like, oh, done. Not going to fuss with this anymore. I have this power pack with this as well, and unfortunately, so I have about $200 worth of product that I probably won't ever use. But I may give this away if one of you wants to tinker with it and see what you can get done with it. Then we're down to the two Eachine products, and they had their own issues. Out of this category, I would go with the 90. I think it flew a little bit better outside, and I thought it was manageable inside, but it is a little bit more of a challenge to manage inside, and that's because it weighs more. And it's got these 1104 motors on here. Get one of these rotated, and when you add the weight that we get from 1104 motors, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to fly inside, but you can still do it. The other side of this, that one of its major faults was the props. The props would just shatter. Their clearance in here isn't quite enough, and you can get some changes in your frame shape, and the next thing you know, it breaks. Well, I'm missing a screw there. And I did also break, oh no, I didn't break this one, I broke the other one. Oh, the pod came loose. I had a really bad crash in this one, and the pod just popped out. But this flexes enough to where you can just kind of shimmy things back in there. So in this category, if I were purchasing, and I didn't want to build anything, I would choose Eachine Aurora. I think the parts are better, it's got an OSD. I do think this one, I did read online where it suffers from death rolls, but I didn't have any problems with it, and I can only speak to my experience. And this is only my opinion. You'll probably hear that several times. Let's take a look at the build side. This category is a little bit more full because I like to build, and I would rather have my own efforts into the quad. Buying stuff off the shelf is fine and well, but I enjoy building, and so when I buy something off the shelf, that kind of takes a little bit of my enjoyment factor away. So these are all kind of near and dear and personal. You know, I made my own choices when choosing my components, and we have a lot more choices available to us as far as flight controllers and ESCs now than we did probably at the times that I built these. But these are all perfectly fine and good candidates, and that's something I need to stress, is that you can make any one of these your own. There seems to be two categories here. We have 3D printed style with the owl and the quatrevolant and the tiny swift, and I have videos on all these. I'll put a link to them right up here. And in this category, if I can only pick one, I can only have one, I go with the Hoverbot. It's bulletproof. I love the fact that it's got a low profile and it flies great. You got a full 2-inch prop. It's really light. You know, I think mine comes in around 44 grams. We have a whole bunch of other props that are probably better than these that I've got on here, but it flies so well, and it flies so well, I decided to build another one. And this one I've got the new Gem Fan props on. I went with pink motors again for my girls, and they fly great. I put this one that has an OSD flight controller board in it, so I bought one of these cameras that's on there right now, and I haven't replaced the circular polarized antenna. One thing that I kind of prefer the camera mount for this one. I have some of the extras, and I think I'll probably end up using those over this one. And I can't give you a definitive reason why that is. I just think this one's sleeker. I think I like the antenna mounts a little bit better, although it was kind of fussy getting in there. I like that camera mount a little bit more. Maybe it's the industrial look because all the components are sticking out. I think if you're looking for something that is more versatile, like this is, when we have 1103 motors, those are really for flying inside. You can fly them perfectly well outside, and I was actually just flying this one here a little while ago, and smacked a tree, and we're still fine. We're still good to go. And they do have new struts. They're testing new materials. I got an email from them, but I opted not to go into the testing. I felt that I've got too many things going on. I wouldn't be able to do them justice. And this flies great, but the thing about these are, and you could say the same thing about the Macaron and maybe this from FlexRC offering, is that you do see this bar in your view, and that might bother you. But when you're flying outside, you really don't, because you start to get the nose down more, and then the bar kind of just disappears. And that's the case with just about all these. If you don't want to see anything in your view, then I think the OWL version with the camera up front is the way to go. Mine's a little bit wobbly because I've had the camera in and out of there a few times, and I actually broke one camera, I think, and I had to replace it. So this gives you a really small indoor flyer without the view of having a tiny whoop style view. I do think if I had a second one to choose, I would choose the Tombow Quad's Tiny Swift, and that's based primarily off of its size. I don't really notice a great difference when I'm flying between these two sizes as far as what I'm willing to do with them. But I do think that I would tend to fly more underneath chairs and things of that nature with this, but if we look at the profile differences, the Hoverbot's got a slimmer profile because we've got the ESCs underneath, and we've got that stack. And that brings me to the next point. If you're a designer out there, I don't mean to be critical. These are really good designs. I can't do what you do. But I do think we need to be more precise, and there could be very good reasons why our designers aren't doing this. The prop guards are oftentimes not lined up with the prop line. Like you can see this one, well, this one's kind of a bit lower, but when we've got FlexRC motors on here, the prop guard is quite a distance from the prop. So that means if your prop is in this position and you bump into a baseboard or something, you actually damage your prop. Whereas if it was down a little bit and was directly in the prop line, we would probably be less likely to break a prop. And I do like these props. These are tri-blades. I'll link them down in the description. You do have to drill them out in order to make them work. They are a little bit fragile. We can see that one's got a stress point on it, but it's still, I bend it back and it still flies just fine. And I have tried a number of other props. I haven't experimented a lot with props, but like on the Swirly, I really liked how it flies, but I've been through a couple of these little 3D printed struts over here, and I think that's the weak point. And if it was printed from TPU like Tomow's is, I think I would probably prefer the Swift because it does have a smaller profile, if I get them lined up here just right. And that profile means that I'm generally more comfortable just squeezing through tight spots indoors. Now, a lot of people are going to ask about flight times. Of course, my flight times are relatively short because I like to stay with really small, really light batteries, and I like to go fast. I'm kind of more like a racer than I am an acro pilot, and it's mainly because my skill set. I'm not a good acro pilot. Yes, I've experimented a lot with different moves that I've seen, but in the spaces I fly, I tend to spend more time going and picking it up than I do actually practicing those moves because I'm staying under, say, 10 to 12 feet. So doing moves that take any sort of time, they pose a different risk, and I don't have much recovery because I am so close to the ground, or I'm so close to trees and stuff like that. But my flying style is to get the nose down and to hit the throttle and just go fast. And that's what I enjoy. So your opinion on these might differ. I think if you're looking for something that's the most versatile, flying inside and outside, I would go with the macaron, which I looked it up, and I believe that's a French cookie. I really like the fact that this is pretty much all carbon fiber. This is TPU printed. It's flexible. I haven't had any problems in any of my crashes that this getting damaged at all. I like the fact that it's got feet, so you're not necessarily landing on your battery, or in my case, crashing. But again, if we look at the props, they're up above. So you do have potential of hitting those props and stuff when you get upside down. So if you're a designer, please line up our guards so they're right with the prop line. But I think that also, if they do that, that limits your motor. Because if you get with 1104 motor that is a little bit taller, then it's going to stick out like this. If I were to use 1103 motors on this, it would probably be right in the prop line. So maybe I'm asking too much. Who knows? But we can only ask, right? So there you go, guys. That's the Roundup. I probably would have done it a lot differently if this category had gone stagnant and they really weren't developing, but they just kept coming out. I mentioned doing a comparison video, and I had started working through creating new flight video, because one of my first ones, which I think this is this the Q85? I'm sure my skill set changed over the course of building these and flying, and the more indoor flying experience. I'm sure I got better on the sticks, and many of you have complimented me on that, and I appreciate those compliments. But I didn't think it was fair to post a bunch of flight footage when that flight footage was older. So by the time I had worked through several of these, something new would come to market, like the swirly came out. So then you got to do the swirly, you want to get this out so people are aware of it. And I was excited to fly something new. Then after the swirly, we got the Tiny Swift came out, and somewhere in there was the Hoverbot. And then I revisited Flex RC, and I saw that one, I need to get that. So this production would have been a much greater production if it weren't so expansive. It just keeps expanding. We continue to see more and more quads that fit this category. If you have any comments or questions that are specific about these vehicles, make sure you go back, watch the videos I did in there, because I think I did a decent job answering many of the questions. Scroll through the comments, but if you can't find what you're looking for, message me. I'll do the best I can to get back with you, because I do appreciate everybody who takes the time to ask questions, and I want everybody to have the best possible experience they can. That's it. That's the wrap-up. So from here on out, what I'll be doing is I'll be comparing either a build to the Hoverbot or the Tiny Swift. In the ready-to-fly category, I'll be comparing them to the Aurora 90. I'll place each and every one that comes into this category against one of those quads. Okay, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. You'll especially want to see the next video, I think. Thanks for watching, everybody.